Hello, Chiara.
Hello, how are
Hi.
you?
Yeah, very good. How are you? Nice to see you.
Awesome. Good to see you too.
So, how have you been lately? You told me that you are not in Italy at the moment, but in Burgundy, right?
Correct. I've been here since November, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been, I grew up at my winery, and I've been working at the winery since I was very young. And so I've done all my studies, doing it side by side with working at the winery. And at one point I realized that I needed more viticulture knowledge. And that's why I came here to study viticulture and work for another winery. So I could, I don't know, just experience something else and learn about different thought processes. So we've been here since November, and we'll be here until all the green season, so until July.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's quite cool. It's different to leave quarantine in the vineyards because you work very hard, but you still open air. So it feels good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What winery is it? Can you let us know? And what does it have to do with the wines your family makes at Emidio Pepe in Abruzzo?
Yeah, so the winery I'm working for, it's a winery in Savigny-les-Beaunes called Chandon de Briaille, and it's a winery that he's been doing biodynamic viticulture since 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a very good maîtrise of either the experimenting of stuff, but also knowing that those method function very well. I think we're working with soils that are the most incredible soils you can find around here. They're very much aerated. There's a lot of microbiology activity of the soil. You can see, it's a winery that has always been plowing with horses.
Mm-hmm.
So there's never been the use of tractors.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, they've substitute all the sulfur use with milk,
Mm-hmm.
which is also something very challenging in a way and very forward-looking, but is also functioning very well apparently. But you just have to be a little bit more careful, and you have to make sure you go more often. And so yeah, they're experimenting a lot of things. Definitely, biodynamic viticulture is at the base of the work they do and the philosophy they pursue. And it has been quite amazing to work for. I don't know, just a different winery, different team, different landscape, different vines. It's good to adapt to a different microclimate and a different setting compared to what I grew up into. It's quite fascinating. I'm definitely learning a lot. It's just because here you definitely have a different climate, and you compared to what we have in Abruzzo, you have there's more humidity, so you have different diseases that you have to face, and how can you cope with those using natural remedies in a way, and using the moon phases and using the right times to do that. It's very interesting, and I'm learning a lot.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe you can let us know a little bit. I don't know if everyone of the viewers knows about Emidio Pepe, what you actually do. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what Emidio Pepe is about, a little bit, maybe a slight bit about the history, but actually, what do you do there? It's also a very a work that is very close to nature, no?
Yeah, absolutely. So my grandfather, Emidio Pepe, founded the winery back in 1964. together with my grandmother in Abruzzo, which, if you think of Rome and you go on the same level but on the Adriatic coast, that's where we are. So we are only 10 kilometers from the sea level. And at the beginning, it started as very, very small operation. They were making wine at the bottom of their house. They were making around 3,000 bottles. Grandfather always felt this incredible passion for winemaking, and he was always very, very close to nature. What I think today, well, now is 87, still in great shape and still working a lot. But what is special about grandfather is he always had this incredible sensibility towards understanding nature. Like, he would look at a plant and immediately say what the plant needed. Or it's just, he had a very high quality sense of observation, which I think us in the modern world, we're quite losing. But he had always this innate talent for it. And also he believed that Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, which is the main varietal indigenous that we work with, was really meant to be aging. Back in the days, nobody was aging this great varietal. But in his opinion, with the artisanal and also very natural method, he was making those wines for him that were aging very well. And not only they were aging very well, but they actually were meant to be aged. Because if at the beginning they were releasing energy and crispiness and flavor and power, with time they will gain more of the refinement, more of the elegance, the precision, the complexity, which for him, it was much more interesting to release those kind of wines that could let people think than releasing glue style wines. So for him, complexity was really an important subject. So I grew up in that kind of thing, in that kind of thought process, like a wine that had to be unique and very specific to a place. So talk about a microclimate in a very specific place in that specific region, and at the same time could then be captured and aged for very, very long time. And with that complexity that it would have achieved with long-term aging, it will still be able to release the characteristic of the season. So he always taught winemaking as a way of kind of collecting history. He always thought that once you make wine, you kind of do a snapshot of that season. And once you put in bottle, you bottle something that it definitely evolves and it's alive. So it definitely changed and has its own life path towards the year passing by. But at the same time, you will keep an innate personality of telling the season he was grown up into. So grandfather always says, like, you know, when you open a bottle from the 1980s, they will be able to tell you how was the season in that specific year. And it's quite special. So at the beginning, it was very small, and then my mum and my aunt arrived, and they started to work at the winery as young girls, and now they own the winery. So together with grandma and granddad, they are surveilling everything. My mum and my aunt are now running the winery. My mum does mainly the administration side, and my aunt Sophia, she's in charge of winemaking and farming. We are, you know, since the very beginning, grandfather was always very, very respectful of nature. These meaning not using any chemical products in the vineyards and in the cellar. This meaning always drink spontaneous fermentation, being very low on sulfur use, and not ever using any pesticides. So when my mom and my aunt took over, it was very, in a way, a responsibility to bring the farming at a different level, considering where they were starting from. So they started approaching biodynamic agriculture, reading the Rudolf Steiner books, and kind of everything made so much sense. You know, many of those ideology was actually already in practice at the winery. So we committed fully to it, and so we are farming biodynamically since 2006.
A few years ago, this kind of artisanal wine was still a niche product, I would say, and today it is very, very much sought after. Is it that you feel the Corona crisis, or is it that with your special product that has been so sought after in the last few years, the effect of the Corona crisis is kind of mild, or how would you describe it? Because you told me yesterday you sell 90% to gastronomy, right?
Yes, mainly to restaurant. It's definitely food wine for sure. You know, what is my feeling is that over the past, I'd say 10 years, consumers are more and more responsible of what they buy. Like they want to know the responsibility that the farmer has taken, but they also take the responsibility of choosing, which is so important in the whole food chain, you know, because you don't give only responsibility to other people, but you take the responsibility of yourself of choosing. People have been reading more. People have been, well, not those days, unfortunately, but they have been going more to visit wineries. And that is quite of a key point, because once you see a winery, you understand deeply what's going on in the winery. So if you see something strange, straight away you're like, maybe not. So that has really improved decision power and knowledge of clients toward what they want to drink and what they want to put into their body. And I think those days in which, like, we all are taking quite of a break from our crazy lives and running from places to places and having no break, to read more, to think more about what we want to eat and drink, study more. Because, you know, sometimes you kind of give farming for granted and you think that it's always been there. So you don't need to support, you don't need to cooperate, you don't need to learn, you don't need to study. But actually everything that is around agriculture is a serious word of knowledge, of studying biodiversity, of studying physiologic reaction of plants. There's so much to learn, so that consumers are getting more knowledgeable, really, of what they are buying. They're more interested, they ask more questions. The farmer feels he needs to kind of match those requirements, because it's interesting for me. Also, competition in one point of view, it's so important, because it kind of set the trend always higher and higher and higher. So you want to improve, and you need to improve. It's a responsibility. You need to improve as a consumer. I need to improve as a farmer. So I think those days are even more of a time of reflection, I think people will reduce their choice and will be more selective, and what they buy are going to buy with more consciousness and more attention, asking more questions. And that's exactly on the other side. From the producer's point of view, you will need more attention. This is a time to study more, learn more, observe more, spend more time into the vineyards. And it's something that we kind of miss because we have so many other things that we've been taking away from. But walking into the vines and watching and being patiently observing makes you improve, makes you a better farmer. So yeah, that's kind of my feeling. I feel this is a time exactly for that, hopefully.
Yeah, you told me yesterday that you were reflecting a lot about your origins, because you basically come from a family of farmers.
Indeed.
Do you think that there will be, or we will see a lot more young people turning to a farming career in the next few years?
That's what I really dream. I really and honestly hope that's going to be the case. You know, as we are all taking our time and we all have a little bit more time, you know, agriculture is not something that you get incredibly passionate straight away unless you kind of grew up into a farm family. When somebody could take you into the fields and explain the seasons and explain why this is happening and this exactly time of the year. But I feel we have to find a way in order to transmit the passion for farming. It's something so unique, so intimate, so needed, that we have to find a way to pass on this incredible heritage. And I really hope that many young people, also on this time in which, you know, everything is kind of blocked, and actually a lot of, like where I'm living now, a lot of young people that were working in gastronomy, they're now in the vineyards helping for ébouchonnage or debudding, because their rations is closed, and that's, for them it's a very special occasion where they can actually touch with hands what is going on in the vineyards and I'm sure that after that they will be able to talk about those wines in a very different way. But it's I think it's an occasion for young people to get really in touch with nature and understand why it is so sensible to be in touch with nature and to cooperate with nature and to grow. I think farming, it's all about intention. It's a gesture that you do towards it. And how can you work with nature without changing the nature? That is really an interesting point. Like, how can I be a good farmer without changing the landscape? Or actually improving my ecosystem, improving my biodiversity. What can I do for you instead of what can I take from you? Like, clearly you give me fertility, but farming is not about planting a seed and picking up the fruit afterwards. But in this process, how can I improve the fertility of the soil? How can I be better to rebuild the landscape that was here before industrialization? How can I, you know, those are questions that is kind of the responsibility of us young people, because for many years, unfortunately, we all know, we all been leaving it. The landscape has been changing so much, and we have just been sucking out everything that the nature could could give us without ever giving back,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of a selfish attitude. And it's time for us to give back and do not only cultivate, because farmers do not cultivate, but they collaborate with nature. They work along. And how can I farm properly and responsibly without taking away from the nature, without subtracting fertility, but actually adding? How can I compost better? How can I? It's so much stuff that needs to be thought of, and sometimes we just give it for granted. As well as when we drink a glass of wine, sometimes we focus too much on judging the quality of the wine itself, what we have in the glass, without thinking, how's the farming has happened? How those people are farming? Are they actually behaving correctly, or are they just exploiting the land? And to me, so if those are kind of virtues that I grew up, and questions that I've always asked myself, but I always think, like, how can I communicate this to other young people that maybe didn't have the same luck as me, but they have the potential or the interest or the sensibility to work in good symbiosis with nature? And there's also, it's a strong commitment, because farming, again, it's about studying soil and biotypes and fertility and biodiversity and microbiology and chemistry, but it's so, there's a satisfaction coming out of it that it's quite special. I think not many work gives you the same pride of collaborating with a whole ecosystem. It's quite unique. Well, I feel lucky for this, and I hope whoever will ever want to plunge in this incredible work will feel the same luck as I feel.
Of course, yeah. I was thinking about the farmer as the guardian of nature. I think that is his one of his most important tasks. Do you think that in this sense, this Corona crisis, with a collapse in sales to gastronomy, which is quite dramatic for the wine business, on the other hand, the wine business will profit from that, because there will be massive changes in the long run?
I think good winemakers and gastronomy, they work so much along, like side by side and in parallel, that it's they create like a vortex of virtues. And I think the two businesses or two economies cannot really work without the other. Like for me as a winemaker, gastronomy is incredibly important. And not only because we sell most of our wine to gastronomy, but I also feel I'm so dependent from them, because they end up being ambassadors for proper food and proper wine. Like they take the time to explain, and they take the time to reflect, and they give the chance to clients to think about more what they eat and what they drink. Sometimes also, like when we go so fast, we eat something, we don't really think about it. We drink something, we don't really think about it. But when you go to a restaurant and you have people pointing out some stuff and giving you ideas, then you start reflecting and thinking more. And that's exactly what the role of sommeliers, of servers, it's for me. They turn out being the ambassadors of my wine. And at the same time, I give my wine to them to pair with food that they make and that I've studied for this wine or the other wine. So I think the work is so complementary. That also, I think, it's just when you go to a restaurant, you kind of pay time, which is something more and more precious. And so I don't know. I don't think winery will profit from the gastronomy activity decrease, but they will suffer as much as they do. And I think when we will restart, I think it's our responsibility in a way, and not because we're suffering less, but just we will need to support each other even more than before. If before we were partner, now we're going to be partner even stronger, because the difficult time is now, but the more difficult time is going to come later on, when we'll have to face the problems, and that's when you actually show each other support. Because now there's not much that we can actually do, but in the future you can say, I'm here for you and you're here for me. I think also it's a very human approach to face a crisis. It's at the end, it's all about the relationship, and it's all about believing in each other's job. I think if a sommelier in a good economy situation had chosen my wine to put in his list, is that because he's proud of my wine and I'm proud to be in his restaurant.
Sure.
And now we are all in a huge stop of everything. You know, we're not selling, they're not selling, it's everything stopped. And I don't think, though, this will change our own opinion, our own respect of each other's work. So in 2 months, I will still be proud to be on your list, and you'll still be proud of how my wine tastes. But we'll be stronger in this, doing this better, and making sure we support each other. So, yeah, I don't think this is now a right moment to profit about the situation, in terms that, I don't know, many wineries are now selling direct or cutting corners. I don't think it's the right time. I think we should support the people that believed in our work before this, and make sure we're going to be there for them when this is over. Or to me, this is my ethic. This is how I grew up. To me, people are more important than businesses. So we'll make sure that we are going to keep respecting each other and trusting in each other. And then, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's what all restaurateurs basically say as well, that people and relationships are the things that are most important at the moment. Yeah,
so true.
Because that will probably be the pillars of the future of everyone. But you started selling other products, right? You started selling pasta and
indeed,
so you know, a future business for you.
You know, we in the past few years as a winery, we tried to increase or bring back and improve biodiversity into our land. So we've been buying plots around our vineyards, and then we are growing in rotation many different crops. sunflowers to wheat for pasta. So we're doing a lot of ancient wheat varietals. At the same time, fava beans to improve nitrogen fixation. So yeah, we're just doing a lot of different cultures and turning them around as it was back in the past. And also not to have only vines, because diversity is the key on all different points, for agriculture, for finance, for motivation of farmers. So it's a project that is quite young. It goes back to 5 years ago. That's when we started with a little experiment, and it was just for the family, because as you may figure it out, as Italians, we eat pasta pretty much every day. And we want to make sure that we were feeding ourselves and our kids with healthy wheat that wasn't genetically modified, that wasn't treated, and that was nutritious. I think we're thinking lesser and lesser about nutritional capacity of food. We focus a lot on taste, but then what about nutritious aspects? So that for us was something that we were thinking a lot and studying a lot. So we've done a research to rediscover those ancient grain that we planted, and those grains, because they've never been genetically modified, you're able to actually replant those without needing to buy more seeds. So it makes so much sense on the farming world and for a winery like us, or a farm like ours. So then we mill with a stone mill here in Abruzzo, and we make some of the flour that we use for the house. So grandmas use a lot for whole bread and cakes and everything. And then we turn that wheat into pasta. And this was a way to complement our production, because, also we have a lot of olive trees, and grandfather always planted olive trees all around these vineyards. And back in the days, it was something that he was thinking a lot about as a way to pollinate his vineyards and his grape with more yeasts.
Right.
And because he's always been doing spontaneous fermentation, having more varietals of plants and trees and fruit around these vineyards was a way to enhance biodiversity of yeasts going on and flying around. So out of those, we make some olive oil. And the pasta that only now we actually started releasing, because before it was a very small project, mainly for the family, for the friends. And also we have a little agriturismo on the property where we have few rooms, and we where grandma cooks for guests, and we pair with our wine. So that's where it was mainly used and the purpose of it. But now we got to a slightly bigger scale. Well, bigger scales is for us 4 hectares of wheat, so it's still very small, but that allows also us to sell a little bit. So we've been selling our pasta flour and olive oil to the market, and it was quite also a way to be close to our clients in those moments of difficult times, because our wine is already like spread all over the world, but having the pasta being like delivered worldwide was a way to think about Abruzzo and share our little corner of Abruzzo with all our guests around the world, and also made them think about proper farming and make sure that we're being fed nutritional wheat.
Yeah. Where can I get special pasta? Can I buy this online?
So yes, you just send us an email at pasta@emidiopepe.com, and we just ship worldwide directly from the winery to private.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's quite awesome, isn't it?
Very good tip, as we can't travel to Abruzzen at the moment.
I know, for now, but you're all welcome to come as soon as all this is over.
We hope so. We hope so much that we can travel. Of course. Last question, Chiara. There has been a natural focus right now on home cooking and simple food. Do you think this will also, so tastes are changing a little bit as we cook home so much at the moment? Do you think this will also apply for wine, so that people will start drinking more simple wine and not go for luxury and the big labels so much in the future?
I don't know. This is quite of a complex social behavior question in a way. It's incredibly important that people are going back to home cooking, because they actually see all the work that is behind food and proper food. So I think chefs feel very recompensated in a way. Like at the same time, there has been all this baking at home movement, which is great, and I'm part of it.
Me too.
But like finding proper flour. Before, you weren't going to a restaurant and asking, wait a minute, which flour have you used for this bread? And are you using sourdough? You're buying yeast.
Yeah.
And is it stone milled or not? And how much protein this flour has got?
Yeah.
But now we actually do.
We go deep. Yeah.
We go deep, because you're baking one loaf every 2 days and you're eating it yourself and you're finishing it all. So you know that everything that you put in there, it goes into your body. So you want to make sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this is going to fit into wine consumption for the future. To me, having interesting overall, having people being more interested overall is very important, because I feel I can answer all this question about farming, and I'm happy if people ask me. I feel the responsibility of farming properly, and I'm happy if people pay attention to the way I farm. So if I don't know how this whole thought process will fit in a different economy status in the future, because flour is one thing and wine is another thing. So to me, more consciousness and more knowledge overall on food and wine is incredibly important, and I think every single good farmer will benefit from it. I don't know where the market value of wine will then go, because this is so strictly connected with gastronomy. So gastronomy really adds so much value to it, and not because of just proper service, not because of talented sommeliers and servers. It's just because putting certain wines into certain wine lists give respects and recognition to a certain kind of wines. So the two things are very strictly connected, and I don't know if consumers will be still drinking the wines that we're consuming to a restaurant at home. I don't know if the access of those wines are going to be available to private consumers versus what is being offered to sommeliers. I think that very small producers will because they're very small, they can't offer the wine to a lot of people, so they will keep trying to release the wines for sommeliers and people that are sure that the personality of the wines are going to be understood and they're going to be in right hands. And they know that somebody is going to explain for them versus consuming it in the house where people maybe are going to go and look online and having reviews from our clients. And I don't know, I think the whole thing is definitely changing, and definitely also market value of wine is going to change, because as I said, it's restaurant being the added value to our wines, and now that they are no more active as before, those wines are missing a passage of going from producer straight to consumer. So I don't know. It's still a very much open question of how it is going to be the new wine market and how we're going to release wines in the future. We all don't know. We hope we can still count on the people that trusted ourselves back in the days, and making still those people valuable to us.
Right.
You know?
What do you think of these online wine tastings, Zoom wine tastings as a new marketing tool?
I don't know. That can be very interesting and important to share thoughts and share knowledge and being communicative. But to me, maybe because I'm Italian and I love very much the hugs and the sharing and the laughs, it makes the whole thing a little bit difficult. But I'm sure, meanwhile, we can't do anything else. I think that's the only way we can keep our social drinking life active, and we can still share our thoughts and what we think about wines and what's our news discoveries and all those kind of things. So I don't see it very much as a marketing thing. To me now, marketing is not what people should be doing. This is not the time to do marketing. And I may be a little bit rough on this, but I don't think this is sensible. I think now it's a moment to share knowledge. I think now it's a moment to let people think and reflect. But I think it's not sensible to try and sell stuff right now. I think we'll need to work twice as hard whenever it's going to go back to normal. But right now, it's the moment to be close to our friends and the people that we support and we like. And whenever it's going to go back, then we'll attack as stronger as we were. But I think, online tastings are a bit strange. But that's what we are left with. So we'll do it. We'll adapt to it. As nature knows us to adapt to climate changing and to heat waves and to spring frosts and, all those kind of things, we will need to adapt. And I think those people that are adapting the best are those people that in a situation of challenge like this one are going to succeed the best. And I think this is something that a lot of people are, like the people that can readapt and reinvent themselves and find not solution, because they're not really solution to be found, but they can find brilliant stuff to do during those days are the people that are going to really benefit and profit from those kind of situations.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you so much for your time, for this super
Absolutely.
conversation.
Thanks for having me.
thanks for taking part in this series, and I hope to see you someday in Abruzzo.
Please come.
Real life.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I would love to have you over. Bye-bye.
Have a nice weekend, Chiara.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
You too.